Welcome to the Alain Guillot podcast, a podcast about life, leadership, and money matters. Our guest today is Ryan Leake. Ryan is a filmmaker, speaker, executive coach, pastor, and author of the book Chasing Failure: How Falling Short Sets You Up for Success. Ryan, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh, it is an honor to do so.
So,
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I've been snooping a little bit around your life because that's what I do as a podcaster. I go and see what kind of interesting things I can find.
Yeah.
And I was very excited when I saw that video of the surprise engagement and marriage in the same day. So I'm going to ask you more about that through the podcast. But
Yeah.
I wonder if we could go a little bit into your background. You tell us where you come from, what is it that motivates you, and what's your career, and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. No, it's a great question. I grew up in the Chicagoland area, a city called Rockford, Illinois. Some people know what Rockford is. Some people, obviously know where Chicago is. And I grew up in a pastor's home, but I also had an infatuation, if you will, with business. And so I've always kind of had a foot in the corporate world, and I've also had a foot in the church world. And I saw where there was some symmetry, where there's some things that kind of connected together. And I loved speaking at churches, but I also loved speaking at corporations. And I saw that, I could have an impact in the church and outside of the church, and that those two weren't mutually exclusive. And so over the years, I just began trying to just get better at my craft, and then I thought, man, books are a way of reaching people that may never hear you speak. And so I started getting into the whole author world, and really I'm in the content business. And so whether that is preparing a 60-minute keynote or preparing a 60-second Instagram highlight from an event, I take them both very seriously, in the sense that, every single day I'm looking for ways to add value to people. And so now I'm fortunate enough to do over 100 events a year. I get to speak to about 50,000 people each month, and I get to encourage people. And my son the other day was talking to my wife, and they were watching me on our TV, and my son said, "Does Daddy help people?" And I thought, what a great question. And we're so proud of the answer. Yeah, daddy helps people. And so that's how he sees it. He doesn't see it as church or business. He just sees it as, my dad helps people. And so that's what I'm fortunate enough to have an opportunity to do that on a daily basis.
And isn't that amazing that with your message you can influence and encourage people to follow their dreams? I found it. When someone tells me I read your blog because I have a blog and that inspired me to follow through with whatever, I feel like, wow, like I wrote this at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I didn't even know what I wanted to write about. And now these few sentences are out there inspiring other people to follow through on whatever their goals are. So it's such a magical thing. What you say today can influence somebody else 3 months from now.
Absolutely.
It's the biggest magic I can ever imagine. It's just incredible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me ask you, a lot of people rather die than to speak in public. And you do
Yeah.
that often, and you love doing that. How do
Yeah.
you develop the love and the skill to speak to people?
Yeah, it's consistently a top 5 fear of people in the world, and I do it, almost every other day in some way, shape, or form. I'm sure a lot of your listeners and viewers are potentially familiar with the 10,000 hour rule. Malcolm Gladwell outlines it well in his book Outliers as well. I've just put in the time. Uh, I spoke this morning, and I was nervous. I mean, I think sometimes people think, oh, I don't get nervous anymore. No, I'm actually always nervous. My name's just being called, and I have to go out there.
Right.
There's times where I don't want to. There's times where I don't feel like it. There's times where I'm sick. There's times where I've lost my voice. There's times where I didn't have as much time to prepare as I would have liked to. There's times where a PowerPoint slide has a misspelled word. There's, all of those things happen. But I think what's interesting is I just keep breathing. None of it killed me,
Right.
and so I think thinking, oh, I have to get over the nerves before I do something. I think a lot of people have great ideas that they think have to be perfect before they ever try them, and that's not how that works. You're trying, and you're going in this direction of trying to improve it, but perfection, no, I don't know that we're ever going to get there.
Okay, in your book, you make it a point that we should try to learn from people who are at a higher step than us in whatever the career or professionally or in many ways. I wonder how we can look up to other people without falling trap of the comparison bias. Like,
Oh yeah.
I open Instagram and there are a lot of people that I admire, but at the same time, I feel like a little bit of envy or like I'm not good enough because they are so much better than me. And I had to try so hard. So I'm aware I'm falling victim of the comparison bias, even though I would like to be like this person or have the same skills that this person have. How, and I know I'm not unique. That's very
Oh no,
common.
yeah, no, it's certainly an epidemic, I think, across the world. Um, what I would encourage you and many people, I'm in the same boat. I have no shame in telling you that I have an envy problem. I have no shame in telling you that. I have a massive envy problem. And I know this isn't an easy fix, but for me, it's certainly helped. I don't have social media on my phone. I actually, you know, I have somebody that works for me that helps run it, and they make posts for me that I approve. But when I'm looking at social media, it's pretty boring because I'm looking at an Excel spreadsheet that approves videos and
Right. Okay.
tweets and quotes and different things like that. And I'll go in on Safari and do the deal, but I don't struggle with envy nearly as much when I don't have social media on my phone. And so now there's somebody you can look at somebody and go, man, I'm learning from them. And you can also look at that exact same person and be incredibly envious of them. And I found for me, I'm often more envious than I am learning from that person. And so for me, I've just had to either remove it from my phone or, because I have an envy issue. I really do. And the other thing that I've learned is, and I get to work with some incredible athletes, some incredible CEOs that I would think, I get to work with multimillionaires. Okay. And I'm thinking to myself, you guys got it made, but they're looking at somebody else who also has it more made than them. And so there's no end to it. There's no amount of success that you or I could experience where it would be enough that there's somebody else that doesn't have a little bit more than us. And so we have to ask ourselves, I think, how are we really going to measure our lives? And I think the measurement that we're making oftentimes with our phones is a very, very unfair comparison to them and us.
Okay, I'll confess, I am envious of another podcaster. This is
Yes,
a
of course.
woman who works for The Economist. She has a section called The Economist Ask, and I just drool every time she's interviewing someone, and I say, my God, am I ever going to be half as good as she is?
Yeah. No, I have a podcast as well, and I'll listen to other people's podcasts and just go, man, I should just give up. But it's so silly because you know there's somebody that's listening right now that's grateful that you're still recording.
Mm, I've been told that. Okay, let me ask you about your personal life. I mean, I cannot have this podcast without asking you about your surprise engagement and surprise marriage. I have heard of, at one time I was a photographer and someone hired me because they were going to do a surprise proposition to their girlfriend. So I was there with a Zoom big lens, photographing the whole thing. But a surprise marriage, I have never heard of that before. So can you share that experience with the audience?
Absolutely. So when me and my wife were dating, she told a friend she thought it would be cool to get engaged and married on the same day. I had no idea what that meant. So I
You
guess
overheard that?
I overheard it. That's right. I
Okay.
overheard that. And I didn't, I just started planning our wedding behind her back. And so about 2 years later, June 7th, 2013, I got down on one knee and said, Amanda, will you marry me? And she said, yes. And I said, well, Amanda, I have another question for you. And that's, will you marry me today? And myself and the resort where we got married, the wedding coordinator there, we opened up this lounge room door, and about 85 of our family and friends were standing in there with a sign that said, today. We rolled in the dress, hairstylist, makeup artist, everything that you would need to get engaged and married on the same day. We were engaged for, I think it was about 10 hours. 10 hours we were engaged, and we got married. We got married that night and had the time of our life.
Okay. And how do you get her family to hold a secret? I overheard that that was
Yeah.
kind of a challenge.
Yeah, no, that was the hardest part. I didn't actually tell them until about 3 months before. 3 months was what I psychologically assumed they could manage over the course of a season to be able to keep a secret.
Wow. Okay. Congratulations. Okay. So now let's get back to the topic of the book. Tell us, first of all, what was the inspiration of writing this book and
Yeah.
also the writing process? Because, I mean, you write speeches, but writing a speech, I don't know, I don't know how long your speeches are, but writing a speech and writing a book are not the same, the same medium of communication.
No, not at all. They're very different mediums of communication, and they're both challenging, but they're both I believe rewarding. The reason I wrote this book was because I know there's so many people who have great ideas, big dreams, and they're just afraid to fail. They're procrastinating. They have this scary shadow that kind of sits over their dreams and their hopes and their goals. And I wanted to just encourage them. Hey, this big scary monster in the corner. Um, it's not something to be afraid of. In fact, I'm not even sure that it's doing to you what you think it's doing. My son asked me the other day, he said, Are are supervillains real? No, they're not, but they can still be scary, but they're not real. And so that's kind of what I do with this book in Chasing Failure is going, we've all been taught that the supervillain of our dreams is failure.
Mm.
It's like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. If you fail, what if you fail? What if you fail? What if you fail? What if you fail? Oh my gosh. And we've been taught to be afraid of this rejection. We're afraid of the word no. We're afraid of it not being big. We're afraid of it not winning awards. We're so afraid of this thing. And one day I just decided, what if we just embraced it? What if we embraced the inevitable? In fact, every successful podcaster, author, speaker, movie star, Grammy award winning artist has all failed at some point in their life. And so I would encourage many people, you should embrace this thing and be willing to go for it, even if you fail, because I think there is often more to learn from failure than there is even from success. I know what I have learned about leadership. I have learned more about what not to do watching bad leaders fail than I have from good leaders. Because I'm going, okay, I need to just make sure I don't make people feel that way. Okay, I need to make sure I don't make that decision. Okay, I need to make sure that I don't. And so I just think failure isn't as bad as we think it is. I know people who have lost their house. I'm like, man, it was horrible. You lost your house. It was terrible. And then they got another one. Mm. I mean, and I don't mean to make light of someone's situation and them losing their house, but today they got a second house. Right. And so we're so afraid of it in the moment, but in hindsight, think about all of your past failures. You're still breathing, you're still alive. And so what did you learn from those failures? And I think the only failure is failing to learn from our failures.
Right. Okay. So when we are little kids, we are full of dreams and hopes, and we don't know failure. We don't have fear of success. Yet when we're growing up, I feel like our dreams and creativity are just completely kicked out of us. You have to grow up. You have to think like an adult. You have to, those are dreams. This is the real world. And many times we even forget we have dreams. We just get stuck in the status quo, and we get beaten down by inertia that we don't even know we have dreams anymore. I wonder, how do we reconnect with our dreams? How do we find that dreamer person who at one time wanted to be an astronaut or a firefighter or a policeman or whatever, that is there dormant somewhere very deep inside of your subconscious, but it just doesn't have the energy to even look up in the internet, what does it take to follow my dreams?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things there. Number one, I'm all for telling people to shoot for the moon, but I'm also all for helping someone understand what it takes to get to the moon and realizing that very, very few people have made it to the moon. So there has to be some realism. And so sometimes there's this proverbial thought that sounds encouraging. We'll put it in a card, maybe we'll tweet it or something. You can be anything you want. No, you cannot. That's not true. You cannot be anything you want. You can be anything that also helps you pay bills. You can be anything that, so I think there has to be a practical nature to our dreams. And so, I think getting back to the childlike space of going, man, I've got more options than I think I do, to me is a more realistic statement than I can be anything. Well, no, you can't be president. Only one person can be president. So it's just like, well, if I just keep trying, the math isn't on your side in that regard. Now, I think if you're saying, hey, I want to be president, I would say, why? And most people would say, so I can make a difference. Great. You can make a difference by not being president. Does that make sense? And so I think a person has to be more connected to their purpose than their dream. And that's huge, because you can fulfill your purpose in many different jobs. If you say, hey, my desire is to make an impact, my desire is to encourage people, my desire is to help people get out of debt, my desire is to help fight injustices, my desire is to feed hungry children. Well, there are many different avenues of doing that. But I think whenever we end up being sort of the star of our own dream and our own show, and it's all about us, and I think there's got to be some realistic practical nature to what we're doing. And I think if it's a person trying to, find their passion, find their dream, I think you just got to try some stuff. I have 2 podcasts right now. It makes absolutely no sense. Why would you do that? Because I'm just not afraid to fail. So we just keep doing it. And sometimes we get better. Sometimes we take 2 steps forward. Sometimes we take a step back. Sometimes the guests are amazing. Sometimes the guests are okay. That's podcast world. It
Right.
is what it is. Sometimes I don't even have a guest. Sometimes I'll just turn on the mic, start talking. I've just said to my team, there's no rules here. It's just a podcast. And at the end of the day, I hope we're enjoying it. And secondly, I hope we're continuing to add value to other people. Will it be the number one podcast in the world? Who knows? But I think for us, the reason we do it is because, we want to make a difference. We feel like we are, and we want to make sure that we're having fun doing it. And so I would just encourage a person to look at the realistic nature of, I want to be an astronaut. Well, to get a job at NASA is literally 80 times harder than getting into Harvard.
Mm.
Okay, 80 times harder than getting into Harvard. Okay,
Harvard is not easy.
and so if you're just thinking about this, sometimes we just say these things, and it's just like we don't even realize the level at which those things really are. And so, if you say, "Hey, I want to be a scientist," all right, well, now we're in a realistic area, but. Sometimes if our dreams require us being in the top 1% of people in the world, well, there better be some other top 1% qualities about us. But most of us are average. And if you're average, then you've got to have realistic expectations and just going, okay, how can I improve from average to above average? What kind of skill sets can I add? What kind of mics can I buy? What kind of lights could I like how can I level up is what I would encourage somebody to do.
Right. Okay. You mentioned a minute ago that you had a friend who lost a house. How am I going to get another house? How am I going to survive? And finally, they got another house. Okay. But sometimes our dreams, our goals are just kicked out of us so hard. I'm thinking now of a few weeks ago, we commemorated the 100 years of the Tulsa massacre. This is a community that, against all odds, they were having a thriving, happy community. And then it was all burned down to the ground. Not just one person, but the whole community was just a victim of this catastrophe. How, one person can recuperate, but how does a whole community recuperate from this kind of, not even a personal failure, but a set of circumstances put it onto them?
Yeah, no, then there's certainly I would say outlier situations that oftentimes our dreams don't have space for catastrophe. A lot of our goals don't make space for trauma. A lot of our hopes don't often plan for divorce, or miscarriage, or racism, or these are a lot of these things. You just you can't make light of in any way, shape, or form. But I would. With as empathetic as I possibly can be when I say this, there are people that have experienced all of those things and still found the courage to get back on the horse again. They still figured out a way to say, all right, let's keep going. And I would just encourage a person that has been beat up, a person that has just been through hell, a person that has just had a really, really rough life in terrible circumstances. You can't always control your circumstances, but you can control how you think about your circumstances. Those things may have been designed to set you back, or perhaps those were things to set you up for something even greater. But what I've noticed about people who have great success is they have a tenacity about them that says, you know what, I'm going to use whatever circumstances in my way for my favor, and I'm going to use this to propel me into the future. And so if you've had some setbacks, my heart breaks for people that have had their stuff burned to the ground. But you know what? That's a story that they have that I don't. Mm. And I think that they should utilize that. I think they should step into that. And you know, every single one of us is going to do something over the next 5 years. Every single one of us. And we can spend that 5 years complaining. We could spend that 5 years dreaming, imagining what things could be like, or we could spend that next 5 years putting energy into our hopes and our dreams, regardless of our circumstances. And I might be further ahead than somebody else, but we still are both given the next 5 years, God willing, of course. And so if regardless of your circumstance, I think each and every one of us has to make a decision about what we want the next 5 years of our life to look like.
Right. Okay. The whole premise of your book is chasing failure. You only get to success after you accept failure as part of the learning process. You either fail or you learn, as you said more than once. Right. How can we keep that enthusiasm? How can we fail 1, 2, 5, 20 times and still get up and try it one more time? Or should at a given moment say, okay, this is not for me, I'm gonna pivot and try something else?
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, I think I would answer the question with the question, you know, what's so bad about failing over and over again? I mean, what really is so bad about it? Was it embarrassing? Was it, you know, you're a podcaster. You can't control if I'm awesome or not. Like, all you have is your questions, right? But you don't know what kind of energy I'm going to bring. You don't have any control over what I'm going to wear. You don't know what my background is going to be. I could have been driving. I could have been playing basketball. You had zero control over that. And so maybe this is one of your top episodes. Maybe it's not. But I think the only way you're going to figure out what works and what takes off is if you just keep doing it. And so I do think a person does need to know when they need to give up. And I talk about that in my book, in the chapter called Never Give Up-ish. And it's really breaking down, okay, if you're a person like yourself, and you're a podcaster, you're going, all right, am I good at it? I think you're good at it. You got the mic, you got the questions, you're prepared, you've got your production notes, you got the lighting, you got the great background. I think you got it going on. Okay, that's cool. It seems like you love it. So you got the skill set, you got the passion for it. And then I think that you've created an opportunity for yourself. I think the last piece is going, is it adding value to other people's lives? Is it helping people? And I think you've got to pay attention to how many, you know, people and what they're saying about the podcast. And if it's actually making a difference. And if it's doing all of that, it's checking a lot of boxes. I mean, then there's figuring out if you can get paid for it. But I know many people who have found great purpose and they get $0 for the thing that they love the most.
Wow. And so, can you repeat that question? I love that question that you just asked me.
Oh, the question of what's so bad about failure?
Yeah, okay. I'm going to put that somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, what's so...
I love it.
We've all just been, you know... Yeah, I mean, people, you know, you don't want to fail a class. You don't want to have to take it over again. Maybe you need to take it over again.
Right.
I mean, that's a hard pill to swallow. So swallow the pill. There's harder pills to swallow, much harder pills to swallow. And so I just encourage people to, you know, if you're experiencing it, well, okay, maybe you need to fail a class so that you never fail another one. Maybe you need that feeling because you didn't work hard enough. Or maybe you need that feeling to figure out what it is that's going to make you better in the future, you know? And so I just, you know, I think we've been taught that failure is way worse than it really is. People fail every day. And so many people are afraid of failure that they won't try anything. And guess what? They still fail. They feel stuff all the time, and they kept breathing. You know, so now if you're a heart surgeon, I don't want you failing at all. Okay, so there's limits to this. Okay, like, but I think most of us on the average level, I think we need to get more comfortable with failure.
That's great. One last question, if I could. Okay, so we have goals. Sometimes what could happen or happen, or I know it happened to me. I achieved my goal, a goal that I've been chasing for almost 20 years. So I did achieve my goals. I did a happy dance for almost 3 days, and then there is a feeling of emptiness because that goal was such a big part of my life, and I'm putting myself on an example, but I'm sure it's quite common as well. So how
Yeah.
do we deal with that?
Well, I'm glad you said it, because I think this solidifies and cements the whole point of the book. Success and failure are both overrated. Both. Because people have gotten so much success and got to a place they went, and this didn't do what I thought it was going to do. I remember when our wedding went viral. I remember going on Good Morning America. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, you're on national television right now. It's amazing. You're on the news. Your friends can see that you're on the news. Well, guess what happened? We were on Good Morning America on a Thursday. Guess what happened? Friday. And guess what they had? News. Something new. And we were now old in 24 hours. And then you're going, well, will I ever be able to repeat that? Probably not. I don't plan on getting married again. I'm good. And so that's how fleeting it is. And so we desperately want to experience success, and we ferociously try to avoid failure when both are pretty fleeting. And so if I could encourage everybody, you want to search for your purpose.
Wow.
Purpose is the
Amazing.
only thing that will satisfy your soul.
Ryan, amazing. I wonder if you could tell us one more time the title of the book and where people can follow you.
It is Chasing Failure, How Falling Short Sets You Up for Success. You can follow me, Ryan Leak. I'm Ryan Leak everywhere: Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. And you also can check out ryanleak.com.
Great, thank you. And if people buy your book through your website, they can get
They
it
can buy the
autographed?
book on the website. They can buy the book on Amazon. Wherever books are sold, Chasing Failure will be there.
Thank you so much for your time.
No problem.